All right. Good morning. Hello. We're going to get started. I am Erica Griswold. I am the Community Services Resource Centers Coordinator for the City of Annapolis. How are you this morning?
Great.
Give yourselves a round of applause for being here. I just want to acknowledge the government council that's present with us this morning. We have Delegate Dana Jones, Alderwoman Ellie Tierman, County Council Lisa Rodvian, Delegate Brooke Learman, Delegate Shanika Henson, Historian Janice Hayes, Senator Sarah Elfreth. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm going to be now introducing the Chris Haley. Are you here, Chris Haley? Yes. Put your hands together for Chris Haley.
Hello. You look beautiful. Thanks so much for being here. Do you mind if I take my mask off just for a second? Or two or three or four? Thank you so much. All right, thank you all for being here today. I have some remarks because we have a lot to go through with this very impressive gathering that we have and this very illuminous number of people who are here. Thank you so much. It's hot. What do we call it sometimes? It's Africa kind of hot today. So, good morning. I'll be brief because I'm excited about holding a key today. A key to history, a key to a city, and a key to a legacy. 100. It is a number which is always impressive. It impresses completeness, certainty, or perfection. Those qualities can be both good or bad, depending on the circumstances. But such a number also offers the opportunity for reflection. How did something or someone achieve this level? Alex Haley, the writer, the storyteller, the interviewer, the man, never claimed to be, or I believe, ever aspired to be 100% anything. Whether or not the label was writer, storyteller, interviewer, or indeed symbolic icon of genealogy. However, whenever possible, he did pursue the motto to find the good and praise it. In his interviews, in his writing, in his interactions with the loftiest of public officials or the meekest of private figures, he hoped and sought to get at the truth of individuals, the key element which linked all human beings together. To him, that key was family and heritage. I welcome you all who are here today on behalf of the city, the event organizers, and my family to praise and raise up the good in all of our families and to celebrate our root legacies of Brother Malcolm's, Grandma Queen's, and countless others whom my Uncle Alex helped us all to appreciate as we reflect on the impressive 100th notation of his birth. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And now I'm going to ask that you guys put your hands together for our mayor, Gavin Buckley.
Just going to take this off. So luckily they got this podium out here in the middle of the sun. I might be diving in the water to cool off after this. But before I start my remarks, I just, obviously, you know, I wasn't born in Annapolis. But growing up in Australia, we all watched the Roots series, and we all were mesmerized by it. And the fact that I get to be the mayor of this town where this amazing history happens, where so many cool things came to this port, where this town was the Athens of the New World, the cultural center of America, and that this story gets told. Sometimes I really have to pinch myself. So good morning, and thank you all for being here to celebrate this 100th birthday for a man who in the modern era put the story of slave trade and its aftermath in a light that was for many novel at the time. He was a trailblazer of the written word, creating his own position in the United States Coast Guard and going on to interview some of the greatest artists, musicians, thinkers, activists of the American post-war era. Happy centennial birthday, Alex Haley. And can we hear it for the Coast Guard too? Thank you, yeah. The reason we are commemorating at this location is because after co-authoring the autobiography of Malcolm X, one of the most influential and enduring non-fiction works of the 20th century, Alex Haley set out to research his own family tree. Now, if you're a recent immigrant or an immigrant who came here of your own volition, you might be able to trace your family's history. Scottish and German ancestors documented their journey across the sea, and many Americans, going back generations, wrote that history down so their descendants could know where they came from. A tiny town in the Italian coast, a hamlet on a mountainside in Switzerland, a seaside village in France, maybe a convict outpost down under. I'm supposed to laugh at that one. For many African Americans, the knowledge of their ancestors' journey to these shores is a painful history, fraught because of the terror of what being captured and enslaved entailed, but also shrouded in mystery because their families were torn apart. Their history may or may not have been recorded. Today, DNA research has helped us solve some of those mysteries. But back when Alex Haley wanted to unravel the mystery of his family, he had to roll up his sleeves, dig deep to do the research to find the story of his people. He spent a dozen years tracing his family roots to the very spot we are standing in today. Right here, where our feet are planted, is where ships whose human cargo had endured a harrowing journey across the Atlantic docked. That human cargo, enslaved persons, was sold at auction. Some in the alleys behind the historic buildings that dot the landscape behind you. In his research, Alex Haley learned that 7 generations before he came into this world, his ancestor, Kunta Kinte, was brought to these shores aboard a British slave ship. Alex Haley traced those roots to Africa, to Gambia, to a village where his ancestor was born. When he had enough information, he published Roots, the saga of an American family. We all know how that went. Another bestseller, writing awards, and then a groundbreaking television miniseries that captured the nation and the world's attention. Alex Haley's ties to Annapolis are rooted in the most barbarous chapter of the American story. It was a story that needed to be told, and it is one to tell, and he was the one to tell it. In a Baltimore Sun article, it was reported that exactly 200 years after his ancestors landed here, Alex Haley stood on City Dock, looked out on the water, and wept. We stand here today, unable to change that past. We stand here today to commemorate and celebrate an American storyteller, following in the footsteps of authors who told unique stories of their own African American life experiences. Booker T. Washington, W.E.B. Du Bois, Richard Wright, James Baldwin, among others. We celebrate the life and contributions of Alex Haley. Can we have a round of applause for that, please? I want to take this opportunity to recognize and thank Carl Snowden. I'm trying to figure out where all right, back there, so. Who is here today? When he was an Annapolis alderman, back with Mayor Alfred Hopkins and Alderman Sam Gilmore, they passed the legislation to create and install this memorial. Thank you, Carl. It is an enduring reminder of what happened here. I know people come from all over the world to see this statue, to contemplate the stories that Alex Haley revealed in his writings. I thank the Alex Haley family, and especially Chris Haley, who I'm going to give a round of applause to as well, who continues his family line of work at the Maryland State Archives. You should all go there and visit him. Chris helped us organize today's event. On behalf of the residents of the city of Annapolis, I would like to present you and the Haley family with the keys to the city. I'm gonna do a little shake here. This is a City of Annapolis proclamation. Whereas author Alex Haley was born on August 11th, 1921 in Ithaca, New York, and whereas Alex Haley spent the early part of his adult life serving his country in the Pacific Theater in World War II in the Coast Guard, and later as the first chief journalist of the United States Coast Guard. And whereas upon his retirement after 20 years in the Coast Guard, Alex Haley continued honing his craft as a writer and a journalist. Noteworthy interviews subjects included Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Muhammad Ali, Miles Davis, Sammy Davis Jr., Malcolm X. And whereas Alex Haley assisted Malcolm X in writing of the autobiography of Malcolm X, the memoir published posthumously became one of the best-selling and most influential non-fiction books in American literature. And whereas, after a dozen years of genealogy research, Alex Haley published Roots, the Saga of an American Family, a novelized version of his family story. And whereas Alex Haley's research indicated that he was a seventh generation descendant of Kunta Kinte, an enslaved person kidnapped in Gambia and brought to Maryland on the 18th century British slave ship, the Lord Legionnaire. And whereas Alex Haley's research indicated that Kunta Kinte was sold at auction steps from the Annapolis City Dock. And whereas Roots not only won a Pulitzer Prize, it went on to become an 8-episode television miniseries reaching a record-breaking 130 million viewers in its initial run in 1977. And whereas the book and miniseries sparked an interest in African American genealogy research that has only grown in the intervening years. And whereas in 1992, months after Alex Haley's death, the Annapolis City Council approved funding for a memorial to Haley at the location where the ship that brought Kunta Kinte to Annapolis has landed. And whereas August 11th, 2021, marked the centennial birth of Alex Haley, whose historic connection to our city is commemorated and celebrated. We thank you.
Next up, I'm going to be bringing up the Rating Force Master Chief for Public Affairs. Put your hands together for Master Chief Doss.
Good morning. On behalf of the United States Coast Guard, thank you for inviting us here today to be a part of the centennial celebration of the life and legacy of Alex Haley. Long before he was an award-winning author, Alex Haley was a United States Coast Guardsman. He began his Coast Guard career as a steward's mate in 1939. Serving in the Pacific, he gained fame amongst the crews of the ships he served above by assisting in writing letters home to families and publishing ships' newsletters. Recognizing his talent, he was transferred to the 3rd Coast Guard District Headquarters in New York and assigned to the public relations staff. And 10 years after joining the Coast Guard, he was transferred into what was then known as the journalist rating. Now, over the years, the Coast Guard has seen many changes. The steward's mate rating that Alex Haley was first part of no longer exists. It's now culinary specialist. The journalist rating no longer exists. It's been merged with many others to become what's now the public affairs specialist rating. And despite the many changes that have happened over the years, we still, as a service, continue to honor the legacy and contributions of Alex Haley. Our dining facility at Tracing Center, Petaluma, California, Haley Hall, is named after Alex Haley in honor of his time as a steward in the Pacific Theater. In 1999, the Coast Guard commissioned the Coast Guard cutter Alex Haley, homeported in Kodiak, Alaska, both in honor of Alex Haley's contributions to the Coast Guard and service to the nation after retirement. And perhaps most near and dear to my heart, every year the Coast Guard recognizes outstanding public affairs achievement with the Chief Alex Haley Award, awarded in recognition of journalistic, photography, and videography excellence. On behalf of the U.S. Coast Guard and the public affairs specialists, it is my honor and privilege to present the Chief Alexander Haley Award to Alexander Haley's family.
And now, I bring to you our delegate, Shanika Henson.
Thank you for having us. I want to thank you on behalf of myself. I get the privilege of representing our fair city in the House of Delegates, along with my colleague, Delegate Dana Jones, and Senator Sarah Elfreth in the Senate. I want to thank you to the Haley family for continuing to uplift the history of Annapolis, of African Americans, and of your family. We understand that the keys to this city have always been our history and our culture. And without storytellers like your dear father, grandfather, Alex Haley, we wouldn't know how rich that history in Annapolis truly is. He was able to paint a face on this city that wasn't just Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, but it was my ancestors, your ancestors, that contributed to the legacy of making Annapolis what it is today. What you see represented in the crowd today are people who are the footprints of their ancestors who came across these shores just as your ancestors did, and Alex Haley was allowed to tie that cultural thread for all of us so that we would be invested in the city that still stands today and proud to call ourselves Annapolitans. So we thank you. We thank you for honoring his legacy and sharing him with the world, and for being here and allowing us to celebrate his 100th birthday. Thank you.
She's so awesome. So now we'll bring to you a spoken word from Marcus Hayes. They call him On Point.
I'm good, brother. How you doing? Good to see you.
Very good, thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm kind of overwhelmed with emotions right now. I wasn't expecting this. I'm somebody that really doesn't know the depth of my family history. I feel it. I understand it from a macro perspective, but I never explored it. And this has just been a reminder, and I've spent most of my life doing my best to figure that out. And in the art that I create to help express myself and to find out who I am, most of what I've created is what I like to call mirror talk. It's something I say out loud to myself when I perform to help build myself up and to learn who I am. Before I move further, I'd just like to thank the Haley family, Chris Haley, the city of Annapolis, everybody for even thinking of me to come up here and express myself to you. And I'm gonna do my best to get through this and give you a piece of me and maybe a piece of history. Maybe you can take it with you as well. This piece I'm gonna do is called Soul Star. Parentheses, don't be afraid. It's pretty much talking about not be afraid to explore who you are, maybe to shed the image you may have created at one point, and that there's beauty in the breakdown, and be courageous to listen to your inner self and perhaps the ancestors that are speaking to you, and move forward. And I believe we're all soul stars. I believe we all have that in us. Some do it better than others, but we're here to help each other and to unify and to heal. And I aim to heal people through the arts as a catalyst, and to join people that have different specialties in other areas that we can all help each other out. And I believe Alex Haley did that well. He was a very courageous man. He believed in the power of the word, and he wasn't afraid. So here we go. It's called Soul Star. I used to let the setbacks determine if I bounce back, or to even quit or move forward. Harsh realities of life infiltrated my sight. The vision I've been given was now headed to prison. Is this a self-created crime brought on by my mind? Dwelling on the negative only wastes time. If I'm the sun, it's only right the earth receives my shine. So to avoid that life sentence, I submit these rhymes. Behind these bars lies a beast unleashed. I'm reminded by all this when my ancestors speak. Straight to my spirit, the dagger to my soul. This ain't no hyperbole, this the truth to the core. A subtle reminder that's ever so needed, and greeted with much tears. Music to my ears. Now whenever the power of fear creeps near, I pay close attention to who might appear could be my soul star. Soul star, soul star you are. Soul star we are. Soul stars, soul stars. Black stars, black stars. Soul stars we are. Soul stars, stand tall. Soul stars, soul stars. Soul stars, take charge. Brought into this world where knowing yourself takes bravery. You get ridiculed, crucified if you choose to ride. For dolo on your journey to stand upright. Know when you gotta fight. Open hands, now clenched fists. Knuckles turn white. Once bitten, twice shy. Now who do you trust and who do you confide? And no one but yourself, but that's like bad for your health. Because if you get exploited one more time, that's the end of the line. It's what you say, but that flame eternally reigns. How am I to maintain? But we can change, rearrange our perspective on things. It lies deep within your cloudiness of struggle and pain. So deep within your cloudiness of struggle and pain. Listen closer to heart, let down your guard. We are who we are, beautiful and gifted, soul stars, soul stars. Soul stars, soul stars we are, soul stars, soul stars. Soul stars take charge, soul stars we are. Soul stars take charge, soul stars, soul stars. Soul stars, stand tall. What's the worst that can happen by being yourself? If anything, you magnetize the true people who need a leader they can relate to, so why not you? Don't let fear interfere no more. You're well overdue for your moment to shine. Let them know who you are. We've come this far. Let them know who you are. The things you see and survive has significance. Stop comparing yourself to others. We're magnificent. We're magnificent. We're magnificent. I love y'all. Thank you for your time. Don't be afraid. Again, I go by Marcus On Point Hayes. Thank you guys for having me out here. Our group's name is Star Killer. We will also be performing at the Kunta Kinte Festival this year, celebrating more, learning more, and please let's continue to grow from here. Thank you for letting me express myself to you. I love you. Take care, and thank you. Alex Haley, Chris Haley, thank you to the family and the city again. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to reiterate quickly with Marcus, maybe like 15 years ago, we were down at the Truxton Park celebrating another event that happened here in Annapolis, and Marcus put that event together and I hosted that event. So when you talk about consistent work being done in your city and representing, that's what you mean. So thank you, Marcus. Soul Star, we are magnificent. And with those words being said, I'd like to bring to you the next speaker, who's a soul star in his own right, who have been consistent in his own right, who have been the leader that we all can relate to. Put your hands together for the Honorable Carl Snowden.
Let me ask everybody to take a moment of silence. We lost a member of this community about a week ago, and his funeral is going to be today. His name was Clarence Hillary, and Clarence was here in Annapolis when Alex Haley first arrived. So if we can just take a moment of silence in his memory. Thank you so very much. I want to, before making some brief remarks, ask you to join me in again thanking Mayor Gavin Buckley. This is a historic event. Mr. Mayor, would you stand for a moment? And would members of the Annapolis City Council please stand? I saw Alderwoman Ellie Turney. I just want people to understand that this doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't happen by accident. 40 years ago, at this very site, something happened that I want everyone to know. Alex Haley arrived on this site 40 years ago. It was a moment that we will never forget. On that day, thousands of people of color came to this place. Wherever you looked, there were people. Main Street was jam-packed with people. There was such great pride. Alex Haley had just completed something called Roots, a mini-series that would go on and make television history. It was the first time in the history of the nation that a family's life was chronicled. I remember Roots when it first came out. I remember the great pride that African Americans had. I remember people like Janice Hayes Williams understanding, even at that point, the importance of history, the importance of recording it. I remember when Alex Haley stepped off of the boat here in Annapolis. There was so much pride. So many people were so happy. I told her, as one of the organizers of this event, I would just want to say thank you. Thank you for helping to remind all of us of the importance of this moment. Alex Haley, I will never forget, had the opportunity to interview and talk with him. I used to work for a radio station called WNN, and you have no idea what it was like to talk to a man who had spent years with Malcolm X, one of my heroes. I found out from Alex Haley things about Malcolm that only he could tell. I remember talking to Alex Haley on more than one occasion. When he came to Annapolis on that day, the number of people that turned out, it was a special moment. But there are three things I want to leave you with, all as a result of Alex Haley. One was Alex Haley, when you go and look at the original Roots, and I insist that people look at the original Roots, there's this scene where Alex Haley has this character who lifts up a baby to the air. And that baby, he says, "Behold, the only thing greater than you," meaning God. Even at that moment, he understood the importance of us understanding that as a people, we worship a God who brought us a long way. There's a second scene in Roots that people need to understand what it means. It's a young Kunta Kinte coming. He has been enslaved, but he's not a slave. He refuses to accept the fact that someone wants to change his name. And this scene played by LeVar Burton, you've got to see it if you haven't seen it. It's a magnificent scene. These men are beating him. They've got a whip. And they say to him, "Your name is Toby." And he responds back defiantly, "No, I am Kunta Kinte." And they hit him again. "Your name is Toby." And he again defiantly says, "I'm Kunta Kinte." And they hit him again and again and again. And finally, he says, "Toby is my name." And he falls to the ground. And an old black man called Fiddler comes over to him. As he's laying there bleeding, this young African, Kunta, he says to the man who's now called himself Toby, he whispers in his ear, "They can call you Toby, but you will always be Kunta Kinte. You must remember to tell your people who you are." And the story about Roots is a story about a man who tells the story from one generation to another, but an African who arrived in a place called Annapolis. But an African who refused to give up his identity. And that story is told from generation to generation to generation, so that even Alex Haley, sitting on the porch of his grandmother, hears her tell the story about an African coming from a place called Gambia to the new world called America. And he tells this story. It's an incredible story, and for young people who've not seen this story, please, please read it. It's a story of the spirit of human resistance. There's a story wall as you go and look at the quotes from Kunta Kinte that you ought to see. But of all of the things that Kunta Kinte symbolizes, of all the things that the Healy family symbolizes, the one thing for me that stands out more than anything else, it's part of a tradition, it's part of who we are as a people. The ability to be able to love. The ability to be able to love despite all that's been done. If one knows the real history of America, it's nothing short of America that African American people are the most loyal citizens the world has seen. Despite all of the trials and tribulations, we proudly say we are Americans. We proudly fight in wars, shed our blood. And even today, some 40 years later, after after Alex Haley arrived here in Annapolis, there are those who would take away our votes. There are those who would try to suppress that vote. But like that defined Kunta Kinte, the young man, we shout with great words, a Swahili word, it means freedom. Uhuru, freedom. Uhuru, freedom. Uhuru, freedom. Uhuru, freedom. And I end, as I generally end all of my remarks, with quoting Martin Luther King Jr., a man I have a tremendous respect for, a man I've learned to admire. He knew something that many of us have not learned even today. Dr. King said that when Americans of goodwill join hands, we make America better. When we join hands, women who didn't have the right to vote in 1920 got the right to vote. When we join hands, when people of goodwill join hands, African Americans who were denied the right to vote, when we join hands, the 1965 Voting Rights Act was passed. When we join hands, Martin Luther King's birthday became a national holiday. When people of goodwill join hands, we change America. When we join hands, a man named Nelson Mandela walked out of a prison cell into the presidency in South Africa. When we join hands, we see great changes being made in America. And Dr. King told us that, but he also told us something else. And it's the one lesson we have yet to learn. Dr. King said so eloquently that to change America, we have to learn to love one another. Notice he did not say like one another. Notice he didn't say tolerate one another. Notice he didn't say get along with one another. See, we have to learn to love one another. And the truth of the matter is, we're still trying to struggle. So I conclude by asking you to turn to your neighbor, either on your right or your left, look him or her in the eye and just simply say, I love you. Let me tell you, as I often tell, and Elder James have heard this many times, one of the things I know, growing up, I once was involved at the age of 14 with a girl, Chris. She told me I love you, and the next day she was with somebody else. I'm able to tell when people really mean it. I've learned the difference between somebody mouthing it and meaning it. If you look in somebody's eyes, Janice, that's the soul. That's the window to the soul. So look at your neighbor again, but look them deep in the eye and just simply say, I love you. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Sister Erica. Thank you for this great program.
Wow. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor. One more round of applause for the educator, the Honorable Carl Snowden. I always leave feeling that I just learned something. Even though I know it, he reiterates it and puts it in my soul. I am forever grateful for you, Carl. I am forever grateful for the ancestors and the history that's being told and written and embedded. I am forever grateful for that. It's who I am today. It's who I am today. Uhuru. Coming up next is a song. So put your hands together for Scotty Preston.
Oh,
Hey, Queen.
can Janice come up 1 second, too? And
right now before-
Chris? Yeah.
And listen, if you have not had any of Janice's tours, you need to do that ASAP. They are so very informal. The knowledge that this woman have in her brain. You would think that when she's doing her tour, she got notes. Because I'm like, she must got this written down. Nope. It's in her brain and in her soul. And she just teaches it. And I enjoyed them thoroughly.
How you doing? My name is Adetola Jai with the mayor's office. I'd like to introduce Janice Hayes Williams, Scotty Preston, Chris. We're all a part of the UNESCO Port Marker Committee, and so we just want to make an unofficial announcement during this occasion.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's so nice to be here on the city dock where I was raised. This is the place where African American mothers whose homes had no air conditioning, they walked their strollers to the end of the water, the bay, the salt water. Our parents were now free to party. We were fast asleep. I want to say one thing about the Ruth story. Alex Haley is the beginning. He is the beginning of us teaching and understanding, where's Marcus? Understanding the triangular trade. All of us are part of that. I had my DNA done, and I can correlate my people to the slave ships to Annapolis from the Bight of Biafra. My people, I am from Benin. Benin, Cameroon, Nigeria. I am 95% African. And the 3%, most of you know it when I'm angry, I'm Irish. I want to thank, can you come up here? The Aussie, the Offsee, and the African. You got this? The Aussie and the horse whisperer, Stuart Pittman, Stuart and Gavin, at the anniversary of his 100th anniversary, they wrote to the United Nations, UNESCO, and asked if Annapolis would be included in the international transatlantic slave trade. They did that. Gavin and Stuart, please. They wrote the letter to UNESCO with Chris Haley, Maya Davis, Ann Cobb, and Janice with their foot on their coattails. And we got it done. So in 2 months, Annapolis will raise its first port marker. Annapolis is now a site of memory, connected with all the others throughout the world. For the first time ever, a marker will delineate. I'm working on it. My speed is coming back, y'all. For the first time, when you see Annapolis history in the thistle, you will see that they were a part of the slave trade. That's how I got here. This is how we got here. So your family started it. Then we came to you at the archives, and you made us know who we are. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Janice.
And now the Port Marker Committee, let me tell you who we are. Scotty Preston, what's your name? Tola? Can't do that yet. Chris Haley, Carlisa Finney, Vince Leggett, Thornell Jones, Monica Lindsay, and we are the people that are who? Craig Coates, yes, the clergy. And we are bringing the port marker home. So please look for your invitation. We are proud to continue the legacy of Alex Haley. Thank you so much. Is this your phone, Jan? Good morning. This is powerful. While we're talking history, history that I'm proud about, the port marker was the brainchild of my cousin, Ann Chin, who is the daughter of Harold Chin, who taught at both Howard University and Morgan University. And I learned from some of his students, they were in their 70s and 80s, who told me about what it was like to learn under him. And they also informed me that the movie that Denzel Washington did based on the debate team was based on my uncle, Harold Chin, who took the first African American debate team to an Ivy League school. I didn't know. So I proceeded to call my cousin Ann like, yo, did you know that your dad? And she says, oh yeah. I'm like, what? This is the kind of thing you shout. This is the kind of thing you tout. This is the story that we all need to know. How is it that I don't know this? As an oral interpreter, and I've done this for years, in character and told stories, I always end my stories with, especially to the children, listen to your parents. Listen to the stories that your grandparents have to tell you. Doesn't matter if they tell you over and over again. You're gonna hear something that you didn't hear the first time. And they're telling it because it's such a part of them that it has to become a part of you to live. So listen. And I tell you the same. The oral stories that we hear, the one that led Alex to his roots, are the stories that we need to have patience to listen to. I want to thank everyone who stood here before me, because you made this, I knew it was going to be emotional, but Carl, Mayor Buckley, Marcus, my man here. I mean, we've worked together for years, ever since I first returned back to the States. Apart from the sweat there are tears. I've been crying from the moment I sat down. I decided when Tola asked me to do this thing, he asked me to sing, and many times the songs are a cappella. And I don't know what you know about music, but not every song works a cappella. You gotta struggle with this a minute. Like, okay, will the melody carry? Can you carry the melody without the chords? A whole lot of things. And so some of the classic songs came to mind, but then this little ditty just cut through everything. And I thought, nah, this is and it kept saying, nope, this is the one. Where's my water? Is there water near my chair? That's not mine. Oh dear, this is gonna be hard. Yeah, that's it. I definitely need that. Thank you, Vita. So, I'm a theater major, which took me overseas and brought me back. And this particular song is from a musical. And it was like, okay, yeah, if you insist. And so here it is. There's a place for us, somewhere a place for us, peace and quiet and open air, wait for us somewhere. There's a time for us, someday a time for us, time together with time to spare, time to learn, time to care. Someday, somewhere, we'll find a new way of living. We'll find a way of forgiving. Somewhere, somewhere, there's a place for us, a time and a place for us. Hold my hand and we're halfway there. Hold my hand and I'll take you there. Somehow, someday, somewhere. Thank you. Thank you.
What a beautiful voice. Thank you. And as we close out, I think that it is important that we do listen. The power of listening to our ancestors and our elders. I remember my grandmother would say to us, whatever is on the mind, so shall it be. So tell yourselves that it is not hot out here. It's cold out here. That woman was forever fighting for injustice, forever fighting for her community and for her people. And I come from that. Her name right now resides on the Eastport Community Center, Rosalie Mitchell. I am her descendant, standing here still fighting, representing. I remember being 11, 12, 14, when I much rather been doing other things. I had to march or sit down and learn about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. I had no choice, but I am grateful and thankful that I know it. So, as we close today, we remember the Haley family. We thank them. We are forever grateful. And I've said this so many times, but I am truly forever grateful for the story that came right from the horse's mouth. So we thank you, Chris. Thank you to the Alex Haley family. Thank you to the chief of the Coast Guard is here. Thank you to the delegate and all of the city council. And thank you to our mayor, Gavin Buckley, who I adore and love to serve each and every day. And thank you all for coming for this commemoration of Alex Haley receiving the city, the keys to the city. Thank you. Thank you, guys.